Hi everyone, my name is Jim Klein and I am the founder and developer of the ExcelCEO program for Microsoft Excel and Access Training, and I am really excited to be here today. I call the company ExcelCEO because I really believe that you can become the Chief Excel Officer of your company if you take this training program. Now I want to give you just a brief history of the company just to give you a frame of reference of where I'm coming from this training program. Years ago, I couldn't find the people with the right Excel skills that I needed to work in my group. And I wanted to write a book where I could just give to the people on the first day of the company, and I could say, welcome to the company, the kitchen's over here, the bathroom is over there, and here's your Excel book. I want you to go through this entire Excel book, work every example, do everything exactly as I lay out in the book, and once you finish that, then you'll have the Excel skills to work in my group. Now, I honestly thought it was going to take 2 or 3 months to write this book. It's really funny because I started on the book and I got so many things going and I had so many different tasks and different problems, and I was thinking, oh, this would be really cool if I could include this. And it eventually took me 3.5 years to create the course. I started selling the course online in 2007, and we have just been expanding since then. So unlike most training courses out there, I created this one all from scratch. I started giving this Excel Tips and Tricks webinar in 2014 to expose people to some of the things that I teach in my full course, and I have had so much fun putting it all together, and I hope you'll enjoy it too. Now in this webinar, I'm going to show you a whole bunch of Excel tips and tricks that will make your life in Excel so much easier. And I do want to tell you that I have a lot of material to present here, and I only have an hour and a half to go through it, so I'm going to be going through it really quickly. What we're going to do is we're going to open an Excel file, and I'm going to take you through a couple of projects. The Excel file is located at www.excelceo.com/sales2013.xlsx. So if you input that address into your browser, you can download the file directly from excelceo.com and you can work along with me. Now my goal today is to expose you to as many Excel tips and tricks as I can in the hour and a half that I have. I actually could spend the entire time just on VLOOKUP, but we just don't have the time to do that. And that's one of the good things about doing this webinar is that we're recording it. And as it's recorded, you can go back over it time and time again if you want to review any of the concepts that I teach herein. You can also register for the complete course, which is worth 40 hours of CPE credit, continuing professional education credit. We're certified in the QAS program by NASBA. And you can read more about that if you go to our website at excelceo.com and click on the CPE tab. Now, after this webinar, if you decide to register for the full course, I'll show you how you can get it. Now, the normal price of the full 40-hour course is $299, but at the end of the webinar, I'm going to give you a promotion code. So you can use this code for yourselves and your team, but I'm going to talk about that at the very end. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Now, typically, when companies are interviewing people for their Excel skills, they ask 2 questions. The first one is, can you do a VLOOKUP? And number 2, can you do pivot tables? And they should be asking a third question, and that is, can you do nested if logic? Now, we're going to be doing nested if logic. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it. Now, I honestly believe that we learn best when we're doing projects. And so if you'll go ahead and open up that sales2013.xlsx, and let's click on the Names tab. Now, over here on the Names tab, we see that we have a spreadsheet with just a simple list of names. Now, these names are in last name, comma, space, first name format. And your objective here is to take these names in a last name, comma, space, first name format and write one formula that will break it apart and put it back together again in a first name, space, last name format. Now, some of you are probably looking at this and saying, Jim, this is bone stupid simple. All you have to do is click on column A and do a text to columns function. Now, I'm going to show you how to do that real quick here. The way to do that is to come up here and click on the Data tab. And by the way, in this webinar, I am using Excel 2013. All of the stuff that I'm showing you here today is exactly the same in 2007, 2010, and 2013, so you don't have to worry about different versions here. So what you do is you click over here on the Data tab, highlight the entire column. Let's go over here to the Data Tools section and click on this icon over here called Text to Columns. And I'm just going to walk through a 3-step wizard here. What we want to do is we want to convert this text to columns, and it isn't in delimited format, so we'll leave that option there and click the next button. The delimiter is actually a space, so I'm going to deselect the tab option right there, click on space, click next, and then click finish, and as you can see, it splits the names out between the last name and the first name format. Now I'm going to click Control Z. Control Z is basically a shortcut to undo what you just did. I don't want to do that because what happens many times is data like this comes from a database like SQL Server or Access or Oracle or some other type of database. And many times the data is going to be refreshed. You can actually link this data to the database, and if you want to refresh it, all you have to do is right-click and refresh. If you break it apart like that, like I showed you doing the text to columns procedure, then it's going to break that link, and that's what we don't want. We want to keep the data intact. In fact, that's what I teach in most of my courses. Whenever you get data from some other type of data source, you want to keep it intact. Don't mess with your raw data. You want to write formulas around it, and that's what we're going to do now. Now, the easiest way to start this project is to break out the last name first. So I'm going to click over here on cell B1, and I'm going to type last name and enter. And I'm going to go down. The name of the function that we're going to use right now is called the left function. So I'm going to type equals left, open parentheses. And as you can see, when I start typing the left function, there's this little screen tip over here that shows you the different arguments that are available in the left function. And we can see that there's two arguments here separated by commas. The first argument is text, and that one is in bold. That's the one that we're working on right now. The next one is the number of characters. So the text basically says, what text do you want to use in this function? Well, the text is over here in cell A2. So I'm going to click on cell A2 and type a comma. The next argument is the number of characters. From the left, how many characters do we want to return? Well, you look at that very first name, Bison, B-I-S-S-O-N. There are 6 characters in there. So I'm going to type the number 6, close parentheses, and enter. And as you can see, it returns exactly what I needed right there. So the first trick I'm going to show you, or another trick I'm going to show you, is to copy down this formula. You see that small little green or black box over there in the bottom right-hand corner of the cell. Click on it and drag down for a few cells and release. What that does is it copies the cell. Instead of typing Control-C and dragging it down, you can just drag down that cell. And as you can see, it works very well for some of the cells, but not for all of them. Look at the very second one here. Jewel. J-U-W-E-L, comma. That name has only 5 characters in it, but the formula says to return the left 6. So what we need is some type of anchor in column A. An anchor meaning a character that appears in every one of the names there. And that common character is the comma. So let's go ahead and insert a column over here. I'm going to click on my Home tab over here, click on the Insert key, and I want to insert a sheet column there. And we're going to call the name of this column Find, because that's the name of the function that we're going to be using. So what I want to do is I want to find the position of the comma in each one of these names. And if I know the position of the comma, then I can incorporate that into my left function to get just the last name. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to type equals find open parentheses. What's the text that we want to find? We want to find a comma, and since it's not a number, we've got to put it in quotes. So I'm going to say quote, comma, quote, and then comma to go to the next argument. The next argument is within text. Within text is cell A2. So find the comma in cell A2. Let's close our parentheses and enter. And we see in Bison, comma, space, Raymond, the comma is the 7th character. Let's copy that formula all the way down to the formulas that we copied down previously. Now I want to come back here, and instead of saying the number 6 in my formula here, I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to instead say, give me whatever is in cell B2 minus 1. 7 minus 1 is 6, and it's going to work for all of the other formulas also. We'll click Enter. I'm going to copy and drag that formula all the way down, and we look to see it's working just perfectly. All of the last names are being brought in just exactly like what we wanted. Now, let's go ahead. I'm going to show you this other trick. Now, some of these tricks that I'm going to show you are extremely cool. This is one of them. Now, there's a lot of people who have been using Excel for a long time, and they don't know this trick. So this is something that you want to pay attention to. We don't know how many names we have in this list. Actually, I'm going to tell you, we've got 1,000 names in this list. And there's a lot of people who already know how to use the data fill function. And that's the functionality where you can place your cursor over the data fill button. It turns to a plus sign and you drag it down. But sometimes you've got a whole lot of names or fields in that list that you want to copy to. And there's some people who click and drag it down, and it takes forever for them to drag it down. If you've got 50,000 or 100,000 rows, it takes several minutes to drag down all that way. And you don't have to do that. Let me show you a trick here. If you place your cursor over that data fill button and you double click, you can see that it goes all the way down to the very last contiguous row. Contiguous meaning it's the last value in that entire list. Over here on my keyboard, I'm going to type the end key and the down arrow key. And what that does is it goes down to the very last value there. We see with that we've got 1001 names over there. And when I double click those formulas down, it went all the way down to that very last name. Alright, so let's click the home key on my keyboard and the up arrow key. Actually, I'm going to click Control Home to go up to the very first value. Now that we've got the last names extracted out from the formula, now all we have to do is do the first names. So I'm going to type first name in that box there. Now, if we use the left function to extract the last name, what's the name of the function do you think we're going to use to extract the first name? If you said the right function, you're absolutely incorrect. We're not going to do that. There's actually a way to do it with a nested left-right statement, but we're not going to use that. We're going to use another function called the mid function. Mid, open parentheses, and mid stands for the middle of the text string. So mid works kind of like the left. The screen tips are very similar. So the first one over here says the text. What text are we looking at? We're going to be evaluating the text in cell A2, so I'll type A2 and then comma. The next argument is the start number. What number do we want to start with? Well, we don't want to start with the comma, which is in the 7th place, nor do we want to start with the space that's after the comma. But we want to start 2 places after the comma. So I'm going to say give me whatever's in cell B2 plus 2. Type a comma. The number of characters. How many characters from that starting point to the right do we want to go? Well, I don't know anybody with a last name that has more than 100 characters in it, so I'm going to type 100, close parentheses, and enter. Now, by typing 100, that doesn't mean that it's going to add spaces onto it or anything like that. It's just going to give you up to 100. And we see that the first name is coming in just fine. The first name, Raymond. We're going to use our handy-dandy double-click the data fill button over there. And we scroll up and down, and it looks like everything is working just fine. We are good. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put them both together in a full name. And the full name, some people use a concatenate function for this. I think that's just too much to write, so I'm just going to type equals, give me whatever's in cell D2, ampersand, quote, space, quote, ampersand, C2. So basically all that does is it says give me whatever value is in cell D2, put a space after it, and then give me whatever's in cell C2. And then we type the enter key, and okay, what happened here? We've got Raymond, then a whole bunch of spaces, and then the word bison. Now why did that happen? And I'd be really surprised if this has not happened to you in the past. You know how it is sometimes when you copy information from a database, like an Access database or Oracle or a SQL Server or something like that. You copy the information from a database and bring it into Excel. Sometimes there's a whole bunch of spaces that are added to the beginning or to the end of the word, or sometimes even in the spaces in between words. And that's exactly what happened here. The database that we copy this from isn't the greatest database in the world. The database designer didn't do a real good job of formatting the fields like he or she should. But fortunately for us, Mr. Bill Gates is a really, really smart guy. And he created a formula. I don't know if it was Bill Gates or not. But there's a formula here in Excel that will take out all of the unnecessary spaces at the beginning of a text string, at the end of the text string, and between words in the text string down to 1 space. And that function is called the trim function. So I'm going to click over here in my formula bar, and I'm going to type trim, open parentheses, and then I'm going to enclose the entire formula there with the trim function, close parentheses, and enter. As you can see, it takes out all the spaces in between the words. Now let's do our double click the data fill button. I'm going to give myself a little bit more space. We look at that, and it looks like everything is working great. Except, let's look at some of these names here. Look at David Olson. You see how Olson is in all caps? And you may do this also when you're typing information into the internet or something. Some people like to use all caps. Well, sometimes in a spreadsheet you want to cut down on the real estate used on your spreadsheet. You want to make it as small as possible, and it's a whole lot smaller if you do everything in lowercase. But lowercase really doesn't work either, because this is a proper name, and the very first letter of a name generally is capitalized. So fortunately for us, Mr. Bill Gates created another function over here, and this function is called the proper function. And the proper function does just that. It puts text in a proper case, meaning the first letter of the word is capitalized and all the rest are lowercase. So I'm going to type proper, open parentheses, go to the end of my formula there, close parentheses, and enter. It doesn't make any difference right there on Raymond Bison. But now, watch this. I'm going to double click this all the way down, and we go down to those ones that had all caps and look at that. David Olson, Craig Griffith, Betty Mormino, all of those are coming through just exactly perfectly. Now we're almost done. You would think, hey, this is really cool. We're done now, but we're not quite done yet, because remember, your assignment was to create one formula to take apart the last name, comma, space, first name, put it into a first name, space, last name format. We had to create 4 formulas over here. And one of the cool things about Excel is that you can do things in pieces and then put it all back together again at the end of the project, just like all the king's horses and all the king's men. All right, so that's what we're going to do right now. If you look at your formula over here in cell E2, basically all it is cells D2 and C2 references there. So I'm going to click on cell D2, and all that is a formula. So I'm going to take my mouse and copy the formula there without the equal sign. That's very important. Then I'm going to press Control C on my keyboard, click the Escape key, and what that does is it takes that mid formula and it puts it into memory. Now I'm going to click on my cell over here in E2, highlight my D2 reference right there, Control V. I'm going to press Control V on my keyboard. Control V pastes that value that we had, or that formula that we had in memory, onto that D2 reference, and I'll type the Enter key, and that's starting to look like a pretty serious formula. Now we're going to do the same thing over here in cell C2. So I'll click on cell C2. I'm going to highlight my formula there without the equal sign. Press Control C on my keyboard, Escape. Now that formula is in memory. I'm going to click over here on my cell in E2, find my C2 reference, highlight that, Control V, and Enter. It looks like it's working fine, but we're not quite finished yet because we still have a formula over here in cell B2. So I'll click on B2 and do the same thing over again. Highlight the formula, Control C, Escape. Come over here, find 2 of my B2 references. There's the first one right there, so I'll highlight that. Control V, find my other reference, do another Control V, and Enter. Now, with this formula, we really don't need columns B, C, and D, so I'm going to highlight those, come over here on my Home tab. I want to delete my sheet columns. And that first formula is working just fine. We can use our handy dandy double-click the data fill button, double-click it all the way down, and now you have got one extremely cool formula. Now sit back for a minute and look at that formula. That is a really cool formula. Not only is it really cool, but it is extremely useful. I'll tell you what. If you can practice this exercise time and time again until you get it down into your memory, you will use this several times. You'll see all kinds of different purposes that you can use this trick for. Now, at this time, I want to go ahead and open it up to the audience for a couple of questions. I'm looking through the questions over here, and I can see Joanne is asking a question. Actually, this question is, there's a lot of people that are asking it. She says, Jim, I am totally blown away about the double-clicking the data fill button. Are there any more tricks to using that button? Yes, there is. In fact, double-clicking the data fill button, there's a whole bunch of things you can do. Let's say that basically what happens with the data fill button is that Excel will recognize a pattern. If it can recognize a pattern, then it's going to copy that pattern. Let's say, for example, you've got, you want to say day 1, day 2. So I'm going to type over here day 1, and then go down to the next cell and type day 2, and enter. Now that is a pattern. The next cell that you should copy down, it would probably be day 3, day 4, and so forth. But what you can do with the data fill button is if you take your cursor and you highlight both of those values there, put your mouse over the data fill button and start to drag down, and you look over there on the right hand side, you can see the screen tip that says day 9, and you can click drag it down to day 16. As soon as you release it, it automatically fills those things in. And that is extremely cool. Something else that you can do using the data fill button is, let's say that day 1 is 1/1 of 2014. So I'm going to do that. Now, when you start to enter dates in this format, the month, day, year, and then you go to copy it down using the data fill, Excel automatically recognizes that it's a date, and it's going to increase that date by 1 day. Now look at that. Let's see, I'm just double-click that there, and it went all the way down to January the 16th. So there is a whole lot of functionality that you can use with the data fill button. Let's look at another question. We got time for one more question. All right, Frederick and a whole lot of other people, John, and a whole bunch of people that are asking this question. In fact, I like Frederick's comment here. He says, Jim, just after the names project, I know I want to sign up for the full course. How do I do that? It's real easy. All you have to do is go to ExcelCEO.com, click on the Buy It Now button. When you click on the Buy It Now button, you'll go over to see all of the courses that we have. You click on the course that you want, and then you need to input promotion code CPA150. That's Certified Public Accountant 150, CPA 150. And if you input that promotion code, the first thing you have to do is you have to click choose the course that you want, then you input the promotion code. You can also choose to purchase a printed manual. I would highly recommend that you do the printed manual because it's really nice to have the book over there beside you when you're working on these examples. But if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You can just purchase the regular course and you can get a PDF version of the manual. But if you want the printed one mailed to you, we do that for $65.95. So you can do that also. But if you use that promotion code CPA150, you'll be able to get the course for half price. Normally it's $299, but with CPA 150 you can get. It has been a pleasure to give this webinar to you today. I have had a lot of fun. Hope you have had a lot of fun in doing this, and I hope to see you very soon as an ExcelCEO student. Thank you so much.